We always have an average of 100 death sentences a year in Kenya. And so far this year, we've only had one. And that is for Julius Macharia, who pleaded guilty to killing and defiling a 7-year-old girl named Tamara. But however, whenever the issue of death sentence comes up in Kenya, there are two things that we really get wrong. Number one, we say that the death sentence is banned in Kenya. Or number two, we say that the death sentence is equal to life imprisonment. Both of these two statements are absolutely false. On number one, if the death sentence was banned in Kenya, you would not hear the judge make a pronouncement like, I sentence you to death. He would simply just say, I sentence you to life imprisonment.
You are hereby sentenced to death.
Makes sense, right? So this confusion came up in 2017 in the Muratete case, where the Supreme Court banned mandatory death penalty. Take note, mandatory death penalty, and not just the death penalty itself. So what was this mandatory death penalty? For example, you kill your partner out of rage in an argument, and another person elsewhere intentionally chops up someone and throws them away. Both of you would still be sentenced to death despite one being more gruesome than another. That is what it provided under mandatory death sentence. So it simply meant that every individual who killed someone must be sentenced to death. So at the Supreme Court, Muratete, who was an accused person, argued that some murders might be less gruesome than others, so they have to be given less punishment than another. So the court heavily agreed with him.
We now lay to rest with regard to the mandatory nature of Section 204 of the Penal Code.
That is why they banned mandatory death penalty. So today you would hear someone is sentenced to 30 years for murder, another person elsewhere is sentenced to 50 years, and another who commits more gruesome murder is sentenced to death penalty like the one for Julius Macharia. So confusion number two is to say that the death penalty is the same as life imprisonment because the convicts don't get executed. They are not the same. In fact, when my client is sentenced to death, the first thing I immediately do is to appeal that decision to the Court of Appeal so that that sentence is reduced to life imprisonment. Why is it so? This is because the conditions under death penalty are very different from life imprisonment. Under the death penalty, you are placed under something we call death row, which is way harsher than life imprisonment. So these conditions include solitary confinement, no interaction with other inmates, no visitation, and even in other jurisdictions, you only get about 10 minutes of sunlight a day in other countries. But aside from that, the important question we always ask, why do we not execute convicts in Kenya? And the best answer for it is because of international pressure. Kenya is among the African countries with a very high alignment with the global human rights norm. So there is a certain status and privilege that we enjoy with these international organizations, which have always pushed the banning and total outlaw of death penalty itself and execution. So presidents deliberately refuse to sign the death warrant, which is required before execution, so that they can maintain that status with international human rights organizations.